Well, as the deadline nears to enroll in Obamacare, we are seeing a growing number of reports about Americans finding out the so-called Affordable Care Act is not affordable at all. With more than 5.5 million people already forced off of the plans they liked, we are tonight looking at the story of a California family facing a nearly $800 a month increase. Trace Gallagher live in the West Coast newsroom with more on that. Trace?
And Megan, Kate Joy and her husband have come up with a very extensive Christmas list, and yes, they have checked it more than twice. Only this is not a list about things they hope to get for the holidays. Instead, it's what they plan to give up to pay for their new health care plan. The Joys live in Northern California. They help support their 19 and 21-year-old sons who work part-time and go to college. Now, here's the deal. Under their old plan, they paid $499 a month, but of course it was canceled because it doesn't qualify under the Affordable Care Act. And look at that number, the new plan, $1,252 per month. Listen.
That's actually a little bit more than my monthly mortgage on my home. So you can imagine that, you have to start thinking about, where is that extra money coming to pay for that policy.
So to make up for the increase, the Joys are now cutting the money they normally add to their mortgage every month. They're cutting their home phone, instead using cell phones. Charitable donations will have to go down, along with their anniversary fund, and teeth cleanings will have to be just once a year. Add to that manicures, magazines, and movies, and they should get the extra $750 they need. And despite her name, Kate Joy is not happy. Listen.
I'm going to be cutting, things like fewer haircuts, maybe not eating out as much, not going to the movies. That directly affects small businesses in our communities.
And remember, California rejected President Obama's plan to extend those individual policies, so the Joys' reality begins in 36 days, Megan. All
right, Trace, thank you. And as we hear more and more stories like that, we are also seeing more and more polls like this. New polling from CNN finds that 53% of Americans do not think the president is honest or trustworthy. That's a first in this poll, the first time they've shown a clear majority doubting this president on such a critical measurement. And the magazine The Economist putting this on their cover. President Obama up to his neck with the headline, "The Man Who Used to Walk on Water." Joe Trippi is a former Democratic presidential campaign manager and a Fox News contributor. Joe, let's just look at some of these polls from CNN, because that one on honesty and trustworthiness is just the latest in a series of polls showing a majority doubt it when it comes to this president. And then you've got, can he manage effectively? Is it an effective manager? 60% say no, he cannot. Is he someone you admire? 56% say no, he is not. Is he a strong and decisive leader? 53% say no, he is not. And one we don't have made, but another one was asked, does he inspire confidence? 56% say no, he does not. I mean, it's pretty devastating.
No doubt he has suffered a pretty big fall here. I mean, the damage to his credibility is pretty steep. And look, he said that the administration said we'd have the website working by the end of November. That's got to happen. I mean, little things, and no one thinks it's going to happen to the extent the administration talked about it. And that's where he's got to build credibility again, bit by bit, brick by brick. This is not going to get fixed overnight, but it's clearly a disaster in terms of how it's affected his standing.
But how is he going to do that when, and we're going to talk about this in our next segment, but even the New York Times has an article out now talking about how the whole point of this law was the redistribution of wealth. I mean, this was at the core of the law. And so now that the people are seeing that, and they're seeing the wealth go from one to another, like we saw in that report, this woman, didn't expect these bills to go up, they're angry, and they feel the broken promise, and that is a reality. That is not a Republican spin.
No, look, he has to move beyond the politics of this and make this thing work. I mean, that's it. There's no way to spin your way out of it. The website's got to work. People have got to be able to get health care, and they've got to get it when they need it. And I mean, all these things have to happen. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. If all the things that the opponents, the Republicans, have said are going to, all the bad things that are going to happen, there's no way to spin his way out of it, and Democrats will be in a lot of trouble, and in 2014 with Obamacare hanging around their necks.
Do you agree?
The one thing
let me ask you this. Do you agree with what we talked with Mark Thiessen about at the top of the hour, this Political report that talked about angry Democrats who say the next and last deadline is November 30th in this website, and if it doesn't work, we're going to go aggressive against him in these oversight hearings and to push for delays on Obamacare and so on, because these Democrats, are worried about the midterm elections. They're just going to try to save their hide.
Well, look, at this point, everybody in the House and the Senate, on both sides, Republicans and Democrats, are going to start maneuvering politically for their own sake, for their own necks in 2014. And yes, there will be Democrats that will abandon the president on this. You're already seeing some of that happen. Mm-hmm. But the thing that's important here is how there are going to be winners and losers now. We know that, mm-hmm. and that's just a fact. By November of 2014, are there 100 million losers and 40 million winners, or 100 million winners and 30 million losers? It's the facts. What really happens now is going to matter the most, and the president's got to make those facts happen best. Even if it's a net gain, winners to losers, the loser hat has been placed on a whole new group of people that never knew they were in the game. They never knew that the president was playing with their lives, and suddenly they're losers when it comes to their health care. I mean, don't you think those losers are going to be a lot more ticked off than the winners will be about going to the ballot box? Absolutely, but it might be 15 million. We don't know yet, and I'm not. And Megan, one thing I wanted to say though, sure, in these numbers is George Bush, his ability to manage what Americans thought of him was 39% at the exact same time in his presidency. So, and he's recovered completely. It's up to near 50% approval now. So all of this gets down to how, that
doesn't do him that much good right now.
No, I know. But my point is that it changes. These things fluctuate, but it's very tough to get that credibility back.
Let me ask you this, because speaking of not so influential, GQ always does its annual list of least influential people, and this is the answer to the quiz we've been putting out there. What does the president have in common with these other folks? And that is they're all, Rodman's number one, by the way. I think the president's 17 or 19 on the list of least influential people. And the reason for the president, the writer of the article writes, well, look, the fact remains I've spent the majority of this man's presidency watching bad things happen, then hearing a thoughtful speech about how we got to make sure the bad things never happen again, and then watching as nothing gets done. Fair?
You're making me sit here on this one. No. I thought I read the piece. The Pope was number 6. I mean, just to show you how crazy that piece was. No, I don't think it was fair at all.
Okay, all right, Joe. Good to see you.
Thanks, Megan.
All right,
well, take care.
New controversy tonight, and I just mentioned it. We've been talking about it now throughout the show. These big insurance premium increases, and whether that was built into Obamacare all along, and whether the people losing their good policies that they liked while others find coverage for the first time was understood and designed as part of the president's plan to, quote, redistribute the wealth. The New York Times now says, yes. We'll show you that after the break. And we had some wild answers to our question of the night. You can check them out on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Kelly File, or on Twitter, follow me, @Megyn Kelly. Use the hashtag Kelly File, and you can see what others have written. Stay with me.